Good evening,
Hello,
everyone.
everyone. Ooh.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome to the Evexia webinar series. Our topic for tonight is your 2024 resolution, Track Your Outcomes. My name is Christopher Chu. I am the Director of Marketing for Evexia Diagnostics and will be your host for this evening. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of being joined by two exciting guests, James Maskell and Seth Conger, who will be our presenters for this webinar. James Maskell is on a mission to flatten the curve of healthcare costs. He has spent the past decade innovating at the cross-section of functional medicine and community. To that end, he created the Functional Forum and world's largest integrative medicine conference with a record-setting participation online and growing physician communities worldwide. His organization and best-selling book of the same name, Evolution of Medicine, prepares health professionals for this new era of personalized participatory medicine. In 2017, James founded New Health, an innovative medical cost-sharing company that serves as an alternative to health insurance for health-conscious consumers. Joining James is Seth Conger, who has been a business leader and innovator in the functional medicine space since 2013. Including leading a seven-figure practice to a successful exit, being published for his team's work in reversing cognitive decline, and creating the first venture-funded startup in the Alzheimer's space, taking a functional approach to health improvement and disease process reversal. Before his time in the health promotion industry, Seth worked for the largest global event marketing company, creating and supporting major campaigns for multinational brands. As always, joining us tonight will be Dr. Wayne Sedano, our Director of Clinical Support and Education at Evexia Diagnostics. Additionally, Dr. Sedano is the Director of Integrative Medicine Education for College of Integrative Medicine and lectures and teaches internationally. Before we begin, just a bit of housekeeping. We encourage participation. So if you have a question, you may submit your question in the questions field in the right-hand area of the interface. We will answer submitted questions towards the end of the presentation. If your questions are not answered this evening, you will surely receive an answer by email within a day or two. In addition, you can download the slides to follow along with James and Seth's presentation by clicking the download button in the handout section of the webinar interface. Without further delay, I will now turn the webinar over to James and Seth.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Hey, everyone. Great to be here with you. This is James Maskell, and it's that time of year. We are talking about your New Year's resolutions and coming up to what you really want in your practice in 2024. And the purpose of the timing of this webinar is to talk about what I believe and what Seth and I believe is the most critical thing that any significant functional medicine practice that has a big vision for where they're going can do in 2024, and that is to accurately track your outcomes. This is something that our industry does not do very well at all. And what you're going to see tonight is that those organizations that are doing it are opening up incredible opportunities for themselves to have other people pay the bill for the patients that they are treating and pay very handsomely for. So we're going to talk about that this evening. And just to kind of, I guess, set this up for those of you who aren't familiar, you know, my work for the early part of my career has really been on trying to bridge what I see as the biggest gap in functional medicine. You know, 10 years ago or more, you know, I used to go always to like things like the Integrated Healthcare Symposium, and I'd see a lot of doctors who were trained in functional integrated medicine, who liked to do it with their families, who did it with a few friends, but had a day job as a physician. And so that's really the focus of my early work, was trying to help doctors actually make the jump to start to build their own practice. And the functional micro practice was born from that. So, you know, the Functional Forum, we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary in February, so that's been going for 10 years. Started in New York as a meetup for doctors interested in functional integrated medicine. The Evolution of Medicine summits and book were really designed to try and make it easy for doctors to see that there was a pathway towards them to practice this kind of medicine, to make it cool and aspirational to be a functional medicine doctor. You know, the Functional Forum communities are really there to, again, make it easy for any doctor to come and see that there are doctors just like them doing this, and that they're happy in their lives, and that they're really making an impact, and this is really clinically relevant. And the Practice Accelerator program to try and help practitioners build, V1 of their practice. But I would say, we're sort of in a different era now, right? The first era was really creating, I would say, the cottage industry of functional medicine, where individual practitioners could own their own practice, could own a business, and could go out and build V1 of their practice. But the truth is, we're sort of in a new era now, which is that I think most people in this space realize that, for chronic disease, we are delivering better outcomes, right? We are delivering more value to patients than conventional medicine for a range of chronic illnesses. However, the standard of care has not changed, right? We are still a cottage industry. And so, what my goal is tonight is to showcase to you that there is a different possibility for this industry, which looks like becoming the standard of care, which looks like the people that pay for medicine, employers, unions, even insurance companies, seeing the value of a chronic disease reversal and paying as such, right? And the value of a chronic disease reversal to them is extremely high, because they will be paying, for all the rest of the allopathic medicine forever, in many cases. And so that's why we're going to start with why track outcomes and really just get into that. So I've given a little bit of a taste of it there. But ultimately, there's many different reasons why we should be tracking our outcomes. And I just wanted to give a couple of examples of, organizations that I'm aware of that are tracking different outcomes and the opportunities that have come to them. The Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine, Dr. Cheng Ron, he's done some outcome tracking very specifically with regard to hospitalizations. Now, why is hospitalizations an interesting thing to track for him? Because he's interested in large value-based contracts with Medicare and Medicaid. He takes insurance, and he is interested in essentially showcasing that, if you put a patient into his clinic, the chances of them being hospitalized go down dramatically. You can see, some initial statistics there. Why is that important? Because for him, he wants to be able to, show the payers that his clinic is a good bet for them to put their patients. That's important to him. When I spoke to Robert Pearl, who is that he was the doctor that really took Kaiser from being a failing organization to being a very successful organization. Similarly, he not only, saw that capitation was the way that medicine was going, but he was able to, when I asked him what the best thing that our clinics could do, I said, look, there's this network of clinics, this unofficial sort of network, cottage industry of clinics around the country that are capable of reversing chronic disease. He said that the two things that you have to do, one is track your outcomes to prove that that's possible. And second is to, work together, find a way to work together, because, you'll be much stronger. And you'll see some of that this evening as we get into it. And so, I wanted to bring in now my co-founder here, or my co-host, shall I say, Seth Conger. In the world of doing the Functional Forum, I got to travel to all parts of the country and meet all kinds of people. And I'm really excited to bring Seth in today, because along that journey, I was always looking for people who were tracking their outcomes effectively and seeing like what could be the impact of their work beyond the four walls of their practice. And so I'm really excited to welcome Seth in today. Seth, when I met him, was the chief operating officer of a very successful practice in Charlotte, North Carolina. And that practice was doing a lot of cognitive decline work and was tracking its outcomes very effectively. And that practice was sold, which I know is a big deal. Many practitioners on here are probably looking at selling their practice as their sort of like retirement exit plan. So there's definitely some expertise there. But I think, as you'll hear from Seth, tracking outcomes has opened up a lot in his career. And so we'll get into that. So Seth, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thanks, James. And thanks, Evexia team, for having us on this. This is a real honor to be here today. As James mentioned, we met back in, I believe, 2016. It was quite a while ago, 2015 or 2016. And James actually had myself and the founder of the medical practice that I was at, was my father-in-law, on the Evolution Medicine podcast, which really helped propel us. And as James said, one of the reasons why we were on that podcast was because we were tracking our outcomes. So a little interesting story about that. I am not a medical practitioner. I'm not a practitioner at all. I've always had a business background and was brought into this practice to take a look at it from a marketing lens and understand what we needed to do to actually grow this practice to a position where it would be sellable. When I started, we were 100% referrals only. People were coming from within, which is a real point of pride for many practitioners until you realize that that is not a sellable business. So I was brought in to create a marketing system and build this up. And one of the things that we started doing was we shifted and changed the way we actually bundled our care. And we turned into a program model, and we're going to go through the different ways that you can bundle your care here in a little bit after we talk about the outcomes. But it's a really important point, is that at one point I got a call, and the call was from Dr. Dale Bredesen, who wrote The End of Alzheimer's and multiple books since. And he had gotten our number through a colleague who had known about the fact that we were doing a lot of cognitive decline work. And Dr. Bredesen on the phone said, I hear you guys are doing some great work over there. How many people have you worked with, and how many outcomes have you tracked? And I said, well, we've got 58. And he said, 58? I mean, no, like I'm talking about how many people do you have where you have pre and post evidence of their actual outcome? And I said, 58. And he said, no, I don't think you're understanding me. We need actual evidence of pre and post, the diagnostics for that. How many of those do you have? And I said, well, we have 58 this year, and that doesn't count the people who are currently in their program. We have 58 that we've completed. And his mind was blown. He said, how do you have that, and what outcomes do you have? And I said, well, we have QEEGs, we have MRIs with NeuroQuant, we have all of the functional labs and blood work that we've done. We did body composition studies. We have a number of different clinical scales. He said, how do you have this? And I said, wait a second. You're telling me that other people don't have this? It was just inherent for us. We never thought that people weren't tracking their outcomes. And it was a big realization at that moment in understanding that what most groups had were anecdotes, and they were very powerful anecdotes and testimonials that could go on their website and help people to attract to their practice, but they didn't have that hard data, or if they did, they were not publishing it, they were not digging through that data, and they were not sharing it in a way that would move their practice forward and move forward the field of functional and integrative medicine. We ended up being included in the paper that was the 100 cases of reversing cognitive decline. And it was a really amazing moment for us, and that's actually what kind of catapulted our clinic after that point, was having that outcome data. So James, let's pop on over to the slide where we can kind of see what data is really important to track. Really, what I'm imploring you to do is start somewhere, right? If you're seeing a number of patients, new patients that are coming in, or patients that may be in a membership who are recurring with you, start with anything. Of course, you need to be tracking their diagnosis and medications. You should be tracking their vital signs when they're coming in. I know it's a little bit more challenging now that we're on Zoom and on webinars all the time in this virtual world, but it's really important metrics, especially if you're looking to work with employers or other organizations down the road who are a little less functional minded, so we'd say. They still need all of that data when they're looking at the core of what's going on with an individual. Then we get into some of the really objective stuff, right? Lab data. Now, there's nothing better than Evexia. Evexia has created an incredible platform to sequence all of these labs together, from the conventional labs all the way to the most complex of the functional labs, so you can have them all in one place in a nice functional report. We didn't have that back when we were in practice, so we had to string all these together. In fact, at one point we had something like 900 different sheets of paper of PDF strewn all over the room just for one single individual, because we were having to order these from all the distinctive different labs. And now with a tool like Evexia, you can order everything directly in one place. With our company, Vibility, you can string that together and see the lab data at the same place as you walk people through their courses and their wellness curriculums. And James will get into that here in a little bit. Lab data is increasingly important. And before I go any further, everything that you track should be tracked at least twice, at the beginning of the care and at an end point of the episode of care. If you can get midpoint tracking as well, so you can trend out the data, that's even better, but you'll really start to see some trends once you have pre and post data for each individual that you see. Other objective data, this is really condition specific, right? So if you have an individual with a specific condition, such as we worked with a lot of cognitive decline, we wanted to get QEEGs to see functional brain maps of those individuals, or we wanted to see volumetrics and using the neuroquant and MRI to understand the volume of certain areas of their brain. So there may be condition specific data that's important for you to track. And then there's probably the easiest to collect, which is the patient reported outcomes. Now, you can do this in a very subjective way by asking a set of symptoms, or what we prefer is looking at this in clinical scales. So clinically significant scales, such as the PROMIS 29 for lifestyle, MSQs, right, the multi-system questionnaire, and then other condition-specific clinical scales. I've listed PHQ-9 on there. That's a depression scale. They have these for many different conditions, and if you can show improvement in those clinical scales, that is extremely valuable information. Along with that, you also should be collecting compliance data. How is this individual complying with your treatment plan or treatment program? Are they showing up to the visits? Are they doing health coaching? Are they taking these supplements or other products that you may have prescribed them? And if you don't have a way of tracking that, there are ways to make that pretty easy. And then also you want to look at their satisfaction metrics, because we know that individuals who are more satisfied are usually more willing to comply and participate, and those who participate more tend to get better results. NPS stands for Net Promoter Score. It is a globally respected score for various things, such as satisfaction, where you can benchmark yourself against others in comparison in the industry. And so these are just a sample of some of the things that you can track. You may have other metrics that are really important to you in your own practice, your own business, that you should be tracking. But the most important point is that you're getting all this data at the front end before you start working with an individual, and then at a point in time, which is either the end of the episode of care or a transition point, you are tracking the same metrics again so that you can actually show objectively the result that you've achieved.
Absolutely. Yeah, appreciate that, Steph. And I guess just one thing I want to add to this is, over the last decade, I've spent a lot of time thinking about what is the right kind of technology that could track this kind of data. Obviously, Evexia does a great job in organizing their labs, but they're not getting all of this other data, the PROMIS data, the MSQ, the PHQ-9. It seems like it could be possible through an electronic health record. It's just at this point, there's a dozen EHRs that functional medicine practitioners use, and there's probably half a dozen that are the most concentrated. But again, it's very difficult to organize across a bunch of independent companies like that to get it done consistently. And so one of the things that I came to understand is that what is the same for every chronic disease reversal? It's really what Seth mentioned there, is it's an episode of care. And that's why I wanted to just take a moment here to talk about, how should we organize our care? And through a few different lenses, like one is organizationally, one is for profitability, and one is for tracking outcomes and giving yourself the best chance to show the best outcomes. You know, one of the things that, and that's what we're going to talk about here. And I would say, you know, this may be something, Seth, that you want to share here, because you mentioned that you moved from fee for service into programs. What were the different ways that you thought about organizing your care, and what was the reason why you ended up moving into a program model?
Yeah, thanks, James. It was really kind of an aha moment for us. We were really looking to change from fee for service because of all the cons that you see there. There was low lifetime value of our clients. We didn't know if they were going to be coming back to us again. If they were, it was based solely on a relationship rather than them actually getting all the way through to a certain point in the care. We weren't encouraging compliance. It was really difficult to predict revenue. And so really this was a business decision for us, knowing that we were going to be moving towards a place where we wanted to sell the practice in 3 to 5 years. And so we made this change really in a business decision. What we learned from that was it had a major impact on our clinical outcomes and our ability to track those clinical outcomes over time. Since then, I've worked with hundreds of businesses, helping them shift from insurance models or fee-for-service models into either memberships or programs, whatever is more appropriate for their type of business. Because this is what I believe the absolute foundation of a scalable, functional, integrative medicine business. You have to understand how you're organizing your care specifically for the outcomes you're looking for, whether that is top line revenue, whether that's profit, whether that's tracking outcomes or even better outcomes for your patients. And there's ways to achieve all of those. So these are really the 4 main areas of how you can organize your care in a cash-based system. And even now, as we move forward, sort of towards insurance-based systems as well, with a couple of these that are starting to be supported. But we're going to really focus today on organizing this care in a cash-based practice, because that is the overwhelming majority of functional and integrative medicine today. So fee for service, this is what most people come in with, right? And you start out by charging for the time you spend with the doctor, charging for the supplements, charging for the labs, charging for the little things that you walk out with and the products behind the counter. It doesn't really encourage great compliance, and your patient has to, show up with their credit card and swipe it every single time. It provides a disincentive for them to actually come back to get more service. So this is the lowest on the ladder, on the rungs, for how you should organize your care. And it's very difficult. Imagine telling somebody in fee for service that they're going to need to pay for labs and pay for time to collect more clinical data from you just so that you can have that data and turn around and show them. The likelihood of them forking out some money for that is probably pretty low. Now, memberships work really well for recurring revenue, right? It's a lower dollar amount per month. It encourages compliance. People usually sign annual contracts, and it's a great model for maintenance. But unfortunately, if you put somebody in a membership with a chronic disease or multiple chronic diseases, it's going to really hamper your utilization. They're going to want to be seen a whole lot more, and that's going to crush your overall profitability. You still may be able to build in those distinct trigger points of where you're collecting data, but it's going to be tough over time if you're working with that disease state population. Packages is really just bundling up recurring visits together. So if you have a health coaching group and you want to bundle health coaching, if you do biofeedback therapy, vision therapy, etc., you can bundle those together for a package. And then kind of the top of the ladder here is programs, right? All-inclusive programs based on the individual and based on the outcome that they desire, right? So this is really a true partnership between you and the patient of getting them from point A to point B, the destination that they want, with you bundling all of the different distinct parts together in that program. So the time with the practitioner, maybe health coaching sessions, a curriculum that runs alongside that allows them to interact 24/7 and actually do work at home, not just in the office. You can bundle your supplements. You can even bundle your labs directly in, and you can have this with Evexia, where you bundle everything directly into your program, and the patient doesn't have to think or choose about which labs they want to get or which supplements they want to get. They know that they've already paid for it, right? You only have to sell once. And no matter what you're doing across the board, you have to sell, right? We're not trying to be salesy, but you have to convince and you have to create a relationship with this individual so that they trust you, that you're going to be able to help them get to where they want to go. Programs is really the highest lifetime value you can create, and it's very easy to build in specifically where you want to track that data along the way to make sure that it is collected and you have that data at the end of the program. At the end of a program, you can always roll them into a membership, fee for service, or everything or anything else so that you have better utilization.
Yeah, just one thing I want to share on that, Seth, is that probably one of the biggest companies in functional medicine. I mean, you can look now and see that there are bigger organizations delivering functional medicine at scale. And there is an organization that has been a membership for the last 10 years and has served 10,000 patients this year and has 50 doctors, on its books, that has been a membership-based company for the last 9 years. But just in the last year and a half has got into selling GI programs to employers extremely successfully. How is that possible? It is because they were able to look back at their data from their membership and be able to see that they had terrific terrific outcomes with GI. How did they get terrific outcomes with GI when they didn't really even have a GI program? Obviously, because they were doing functional medicine. Right? And so the world is waking up, but the only way that the world wakes up and the way that employers will take note is that you can prove what you say. And so this is why it's critical. And so if you can go along and run your practice, on referrals, like Seth said, but you're going to hit a wall when it comes to selling the practice, and you're certainly going to hit a wall when you try and, engage with other people that may want to pay for this kind of care. And an employer is a great example of that. So maybe just to visualize, Seth, do you want to talk us through this this visual? Because I love this, because ultimately, again, when I first came into this world in 2005 and I worked in a clinic, I saw people get better, not in one appointment. It was 6 months, but like in 6 months, these people were completely different. But it was, various different things along the way that had helped them get there. And you can see some of these ideas here. What's the purpose of this this diagram?
Yeah, so this graph is really a patient journey for a 6-month program. So a lot of times when we look at programs, it's a little overwhelming for individuals who are doing fee for service or maybe in memberships and say, I don't know what I should include in this. I don't know all the different parts of this. And so this is just a map of what a program may look like from a patient journey standpoint, starting with educating the prospect, right? Even before they become a patient, you're educating the individual about why your practice, why your business is different than the norm or the conventional out there. You do a one-on-one evaluation with the individual, you discuss the program, the destination that they want to achieve, and the partnership that you're going to create to get there. What we have in the middle there is what your practice is going to be doing, right? Enrollment, assessment, main treatment portion of the program, adjusting their lifestyle, reassess and optimize afterwards. And then the little sine wave that we have throughout there is just the different the different check-ins or interactions that you may have with the patient along the way. Their orientation, the initial intake forms, where you order the labs. Our company Vibility there is on the bottom, and that is showing you what our wellness curriculum would do alongside with the program that matches what you're doing inside the office. So educating, helping do a gut repair and detox after an elimination, reintroduction of foods, optimizing, or any stage of different health journeys or dietary journeys that you would pick and choose from. So what you really see here is all of the different elements. And of course, this is not set in stone, but this can be modified for each individual patient so that they can see very clearly, okay, great, I know what's coming next. It's going to be an office cooking class. I know when my mid-program office visit is going to happen. This is fantastic. And when they have that map in front of them, their compliance shoots through the roof because they know what they're going to be seeing next and they can look ahead and they understand how they're going to get to that destination through the partnership that you've created. And so this is just an example of that, James.
I think it's such a big deal for patients to know what to expect moving forward at the beginning as well, right? To really understand, okay, you know, I'm in this because I haven't seen a resolution of my symptoms. You know, I'm all in if I know what I'm getting into. And so, you know, using visuals like this can really help in that journey to get patients all in. So you mentioned here the course, the Vibility at the bottom, and that's the program that people are going through. I want to take a moment to talk about why courses, right? Because there's been a sort of a trend in the industry, I would say, for people to sort of take their knowledge and put it into a course. And there's a lot of like really interesting benefits to that, right? Is there a way that you can create a consistent standard of care where appointments with you are not the only thing that this person is doing? Right? Can they go through a learning curriculum alongside during that 6 months that's going to support their journey that's the same for everyone? This is really the crux of the Practice Accelerator. This is the crux of you know, a lot of the education that we delivered over time, which is that you need to use technology to deliver a consistent education experience, both to bring new patients in, but then also during, you know, during the session. And we gave, you know, ideas of that and technology platforms, but just to give you an idea of why I think this is so powerful, you know, ultimately you want to create a consistent experience. But if you are listening to this and you've ever tried to create a course, you know that it's no joke. And that's not even to make a great course, that's just to make any course, right? The foundations, you've got to plan, you've got to design, you've got to have a project manager, you got to script it out, who's going to be the talent, you got to shoot the video, you got to edit the video, you got to have graphics, hosting, document storage, publishing, all of these foundations you got to have in order to make a course. And that's a job by itself. You know, I think one of the hardest things for practitioners is that, you know, you don't have a lot of spare time anyway, especially if you're treating patients. So the idea that you could like make a course on the sideline, and there's plenty of practice management people that will teach you that making a course is your, you know, ticket to freedom, but like ultimately it's not that easy. And then, you know, that's just the foundation of doing course number one. What about then delivering, testing, and tracking that course? You know, customer relationship management, getting a CRM in place, getting the technology automations in place, tracking the outcomes across the course, the deployment, and the editing and testing. You know, other people will make it seem easy that you can make a course and you can sell thousands of courses online and become an instant millionaire. I haven't seen it happen in more than half a dozen cases. But what I have seen happen is that those clinics that run a course or a learning curriculum alongside their clinic get better outcomes and can embed inside that system the outcome tracking that we've just been talking about, because it's going to follow the episode of care. And, you know, if you want to think about building your own course, my feeling is that, you know, you can work out how many hours each of these things is going to take, and be realistic about what that is, given that this isn't something that most of us went to school for, and just multiply, you know, the number of hours by your fee, and then you'll get an idea of what this costs. And when I've had other practitioners do this, it typically ends up being $100,000, $200,000, or something like that, because people are in reality about what it's going to take to execute on that course. And, you know, what is the opportunity cost? And so ultimately, like, what we're here to do today is to talk about how we as Vibility and partnering with Evexia are really making it easy to do all the things that we've spoken about here already. So at Evexia, we have a white labeled lifestyle courses that are 100% virtual, right? So that they can just be deployed to patients in between the visits. They're grounded in lifestyle medicine, right? We want to have patients activating into new healthy behaviors. It's hosted in a HIPAA compliant platform. It's designed for private cash pay practitioners, as is Evexia. It saves practitioners time and it improves the health outcomes. So that's what Vibility is white labelable courses. So it looks like it comes from your practice, but actually it's a standard curriculum that's being deployed across 300 clinics, with almost now 30,000 patients enrolled into these programs, and these are some of the clinics that are using it. You know, we're on a mission to make chronic disease optional. As Christopher said at the beginning, you know, my mission is to flatten the curve of healthcare costs, and the only way that you do that is by keeping a lot of people healthy for extended periods of time. And we're not very good at doing that in healthcare, but you know, functional medicine is obviously where it's at to reverse chronic illness and keep people healthy and empower people to participate in it. And through working with over 300 clinics, we are gathering the data to show that clinics like yours are reversing chronic illness and are in a good position to do it. Earlier on, I mentioned Robert Pearl. This is what he was sharing. It's like what needs to happen is that clinics need to work together to prove their outcomes and build an evidence base. And you can see that these clinics here, some of the top functional medicine clinics, are using Vibility to deploy. These are some of the outcomes. So we mentioned tracking outcomes. If you take the PROMIS measurements, the patient-reported outcome measures, PROMIS 29, and you check at the beginning and the end, you can have access to these kinds of outcomes. This is just in 60 days, right? So this is the percentage of people that have a clinically significant improvement in their weight, sleep, energy, digestion, all these things. And you guys know that when patients are engaged and they fully participate in their care, this is what happens to people. It's not magic. It's just that they get healthier and it improves all parts of their function. Well, this is what clinics in the that are using Vibility are doing. You can see some of the different practitioners that are there. You know, Dr. Linnell King, top right, is someone that I've got to know this year. You know, very, very interesting guy, trained John Hopkins trained, but ultimately, like, he got sold on functional medicine by seeing patients dramatically improve by running through this program. You know, then you see Dr. Raya there, he's a cardiologist, you know, nutritional practitioners, all kinds of physicians, anyone that's in the business of reversing chronic disease with functional medicine or, you know, lifestyle medicine, integrative medicine, are using this and delivering this alongside the episode of care that they're delivering. So what Vibility is it's a full done for you curriculums designed by specialists. We have different program lengths from 30 to 180 days. It has real-time progress tracking, so you can see whether or not which patients are participating and which ones are dropping off. There's automated compliance reminders. You know, this is a big deal to remind people to do what they said they were going to do. Meal plans, recipes, shopping lists, a lot of the boring stuff that I'm sure, you know, you can get caught in, probably some of the 700 PDFs that Seth was talking about earlier, or 900. There's multiple dietary program options. So if you are prescribing a lot of AIP or vegan diets or whatever, you know, you think on those ends, there's different options there. Here's the key thing: objective data and clinical scales to prove outcomes. So this software tracks the outcomes. Everything that we spoke about at the beginning, is being tracked along the process to make it easy for you, so that you just know that every patient is going to have their outcomes tracked. And this, you know, I know it seems like Christmas, but Christmas was 2 days ago, and this is a reality of what's possible right now with this software. And there's also a coaching interface for secure messaging and call checklists. One of the cool program upgrade that's available is we actually have white label coaching too. So if you're at the beginning of your practice and you want to hire a health coach, but you haven't been able to work out how to do it financially, you can hire our health coaches to be able to essentially be an extension of your team. And, you know, it's interesting I mentioned extension of your team, because one of the things that I know Evexia prides itself on is being an extension of your team in the lab testing. You know, think of Vibility as an extension of your team. It's white labeled to your clinic. Your patient thinks everything's coming from you, and you can have, you know, a coach operate on your behalf. And Seth, what was the latest data on how the Vibility coaches facilitate transformation for patients compared to other coaches?
Yeah, what we've seen is that a patient is 3 times more likely to finish a program, to complete a program for whatever length that they're put into. if they're using one of the Vibility coaches than a different health coach or a local health coach, which is really interesting. But I think it's because they understand the curriculum so well and the importance of pure coaching and navigation, and they don't overstep the boundaries of a health coach. Now, a health coach in general is about 5 times more effective than no health coach at walking people through a program and getting to total completion percentage. So it's really a huge multiplier in using coaching along with a program to get that completion.
Absolutely. And yeah, so you could add in the lab and supplement ordering to match the program protocols. Many of you are already doing that with Evexia. That's kind of the point of Evexia, right? Is to organize the different labs that you want at different times, and that can be integrated into there. There's also video production opportunities for further personalization. So if you are the face of your business and you are interested in putting your face on these videos, there's all kinds of opportunities there. And it's all fully customizable and branded specifically for your practice. Ultimately, I believe at this moment, and we believe that done for you programs are the quickest way that we're going to achieve a number of goals. One is to help more practices achieve real practice success, right? So to have more practices be successful, to have more independent practices, start their journey, but also, to help practices that do get started to really scale. I think one of the biggest opportunities right now in the industry is for those practices that have reached a certain level of success, right? Who have got their business to a point where they've got a good reputation locally, they're getting good outcomes consistently. How do you go from that sort of 250 grand, 500 grand a year revenue up to $5–10 million a year? You need to organize your care in a way that allows for scale. And so what a done for you program can do is maximize your reach, free up your own bandwidth, and relieve you and your office admin of tech burden, track those patients automatically, grow your practice, and build patient loyalty. So, this is what we're doing. So ultimately, what we wanted to do now is to just say, look, we're available to take questions here. You can book a call right now with one of our team. We are taking calls during the holiday time if you want to really get yourself set up for January. If you're ready to book, you can book into next year and set up a time. Ultimately, what we're going to do in that time is really get an idea of where your practice is today and how we can help you on that end. But we're happy to answer questions here along the way too. Just to come back to the very beginning, from my unique perspective in the industry, which is really seeing the great success of clinics and seeing the difference between sort of the cottage industry functional medicine, which is just one practice at a time, seeing one patient at a time, versus the real significant medical organizations that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars that are working out how to bring in functional medicine and deploy it at meaningful scale. There's a huge gap there. And ultimately, we would love to help you fix that gap or to, bridge that gap by using solutions that will allow for more clinical scale. So let's get into some questions here. Let's see what we've got.
Thank you so much, James and Seth. That was amazing. The value of what you've presented is undisputable, I think. So let's open it up to questions. I have one or two initially, but please, if you're out there, if you want to submit your questions, just type them into the questions field. So the first one I have is, I don't put all my patients on the same dietary protocol. Can Vibility still help?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we have different protocols. Seth, do you want to jump into that?
Yeah, so there's a number of different dietary protocols that we use to make it easy. There's, as James mentioned earlier, there's AIP diets, there's elimination diets, there's vegan diets, there's paleo diets. We have a number of other ones. And then also, we've made the program specifically easy to modify and change. So even if you're within paleo, but you want to maybe change that up a little bit and take out a few other items, you can do that very easily, and you can change and modify the documents. You can actually re-record the videos if you'd like, even, so that it can match exactly what you're looking for that program. Now, we encourage customization. We also encourage utilization. And so we want people to go out with what has been studied and what we have tracked outcomes on for years and years and years and have proven to be effective. What we say is kind of use these wellness programs as kind of the back end, right? This is keeping individuals really compliant and really engaged in your overall program, and then use your office visits and your coaching sessions to make the tweaks and make the personalizations. That way you're getting the best of both worlds, and you're getting really close to optimizing that outcome for each individual that way.
Okay, great. Another question, can I create my own courses on your platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we have a lot of plug and play courses. These are done for you and they're white labeled. A lot of our practitioners choose to do a little bit of filming so that they're actually in the done for you videos. So it looks very much like their own curriculum. That way their patients see a familiar face right from the beginning. And then the other faces in the videos look like coaches and other members of the team. But we do offer both partially customized, so you can customize any of the done for you programs that we have, or start with a blank slate and use our platform, build your own program. Or if you already have a program that may be in a more consumer-based learning management system, and you're looking to move it over to something that's really been built for healthcare, designed for outcomes, that has chat functionality, that has the Evexia plugin so you can order directly within the platform and see the data directly there, and then also that is, in a HIPAA compliant, really best in class platform. You can take your course and move it directly over into our platform as well, and get all the features and functionalities in the course that you're used to seeing.
Okay, great. And I guess one more question I have here is, how do you find your health coaches?
So all of our health coaches are globally certified health coaches, and we usually work with health coaches that either have their own practice or have had their own practice in the past or have worked inside of functional medicine. That is a requirement of all of the health coaches that we have, is a significant background, because we're not just looking for beginners, we're looking for the absolute top coaches out there who really understand the art and science of coaching in a white labeled fashion, because these coaches are truly acting as part of your organization. So we only want the best out there. And we do, consistent review, consistent training with our health coaches to make sure that they're on top of their game and delivering the best possible service on behalf of our clients.
Okay, great. Well, we have some other questions, but we will definitely get your answers sent to you by email within a couple days. Now moving along, basically once you register, or if you have a Vibility account, to integrate it with Evexia, it's very simple. You log in, go to the top menu under Tools, you'll find EMR integration. Go to the page, you'll find the Vibility logo. Click Manage Integrations, and just follow the prompts to authorize your signature, get an API key, and bring it back to Vibility to integrate your two accounts. Next slide, please, James. Thank you. Okay. For any questions or issues, you may have contact Evexia Diagnostics by email at info@evexiadiagnostics.com, or by phone 5 days a week at extended hours, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, at 888-852-2723. Thank you, James, Seth, and Dr. Sano, for this informative presentation. A recording of the webinar will be available by email in the next few days. Thank you again for joining us for this webinar event. Until next time, from everyone at Evexia Diagnostics and Vibility, stay healthy, stay safe, and we wish you all the best on your pathway to wellness. Thank you again, gentlemen.
Thanks, Chris.
Have a good day. Thank you.